So we've all been sold this like massive lie by a children's story. You know the
Oh
one?
yeah, the ant and the grasshopper.
Right. The industrious ant spends his entire summer just, working, sweating in the dirt, storing up food for the winter. And meanwhile, the carefree grasshopper is just out there playing his fiddle, completely living in the moment.
And we all know exactly how that moral is supposed to go. Winter finally arrives, the grasshopper starves in cold, and the ant sits warm and well-fed in his little underground bunker. I mean, it is the ultimate societal endorsement of like hard work, grinding it out, and delaying gratification.
Exactly, is what we are taught from day one. But if you actually stop and look at that story through a slightly different lens, a really unsettling question pops up.
Yeah.
If the ant spends his entire short little insect life slaving away in the dirt, endlessly dragging seeds around, well, when does he actually get to play?
He doesn't. I mean, he survives the winter, sure, but he completely misses out on actually living.
And that tension right there is exactly what we are jumping into today. We are doing a deep dive into the philosophy laid out in the source material, the book Die with Zero by Bill Perkins.
It's such a fascinating premise.
It really is. Our mission today is to take
Mhm.
the conventional wisdom you have been fed your entire life about saving, spending, and retirement, and we are going to completely rewire it because, living like the ant might actually be a massive failure of imagination.
Yeah. What the source material presents is fundamentally an optimization problem. The goal of your life isn't just to accumulate capital and sit on this dragon's hoard of wealth.
Right.
The goal is to maximize your lifetime fulfillment while minimizing the waste of your most precious finite resource, which is your life energy.
Life energy.
Right. And the radical conclusion the text arrives at is that to perfectly optimize that equation, you shouldn't just aim to have enough money to survive. You should thoughtfully, deliberately plan to end up with exactly $0 when you die.
Which, my first reaction to that was, that sounds completely reckless, die with zero.
Naturally, yeah.
But looking closely at the author's logic, to understand why saving indefinitely is a trap, you first have to fundamentally redefine what money actually represents. It isn't just paper in your wallet.
No, not at all.
It isn't just a number sitting on a screen in your banking app.
Mm-hmm.
Money is a literal, physical measure of your finite time on Earth.
It really is. The text introduces this concept of life energy. Every single dollar you earn represents a fraction of the limited hours you are alive.
Yeah.
Whenever you are working, you are actively trading your life energy to acquire that money.
The way the author frames this really stuck with me. I'll call it the cookie on the treadmill analogy.
Oh, I like that.
You know, when you look at a really good warm chocolate chip cookie, and instead of just eating it, you do the mental math. You ask yourself, is eating this one cookie worth walking an extra 45 minutes on the treadmill to burn it off?
Right. You're converting the object into the time it takes to pay for it.
Exactly. The exact same calculation applies to the things you buy with your salary.
Right.
You aren't just buying a pair of shoes.
Right.
You're buying those shoes with, say, 12 hours of your life energy.
Exactly. And when you start viewing money as stored life energy, the tragedy of oversaving becomes incredibly stark.
It really does.
The source walks us through the story of a hypothetical 45-year-old woman named Elizabeth. She makes a good, solid living, about $60,000 a year.
Okay.
And by being frugal, clipping coupons, and diligently saving, she retires at 65 with a net worth of $770,000.
That's a solid nest egg.
It is. She lives a normal, quiet retirement, spending a modest amount each year, and eventually passes away at age 85. But here's the kicker. When she dies, she leaves behind $130,000.
Which society tells us is a massive victory. She didn't run out of money. She won the game.
Right, she played it perfectly according to the rules.
But look at the math of that wasted life. Based on Elizabeth's net hourly take-home pay during her working years, let's say it was around $19.56. Leaving behind $130,000 means she spent 6,646 hours of her life working for absolutely nothing.
Over 6,000 hours, just gone.
Think about what that actually looks like. That is 2.5 years of 50-hour work weeks.
Wow.
That is 2.5 years of alarms going off at 6 a.m., commuting in terrible traffic, dealing with office politics, stressing over deadlines. And for what? For money she literally never got to spend. It is quite literally working for free.
And that is time she could have spent with her family, traveling, or just, resting.
Now wait, okay, let's unpack this. I know exactly what people listening are thinking right now because it was my first thought, too. What if Elizabeth loved her job? What if she was a teacher or an architect and she found the work deeply meaningful? I was thinking about this like a video game. If you're playing Super Mario and you love the game, earning coins gives you an extra life.
Right.
But if you never use that extra life to play more levels and you just let Mario jump off a bridge at the end, does it matter? If the job itself is fulfilling, isn't the money just a happy bonus? Is it really a waste of life energy if she loved the work?
What's fascinating here is that it's such a common defense. But the source material says yes, it is absolutely still a waste.
Really?
Yeah, because the source of the money doesn't change the calculus of how you should spend it. Even if you completely adore your job and view the paycheck as just a happy byproduct, failing to spend that money on outside experiences means you are actively depriving yourself of an even richer, more expansive life.
Oh, I see.
You could have used that money to travel first class to Japan, throw an amazing anniversary party, or fund a passion project. Money left over in your bank account when you die is simply unspent life energy, no matter how much fun you had earning it.
So looking at Elizabeth, leaving behind that 130 grand, she clearly had unspent life energy. But the answer isn't just like buying more random stuff to zero out her bank account, right?
No, definitely not.
The book argues we need a massive mindset shift. We have to stop obsessing over financial returns and start looking at our lives for the return on experiences.
Because experiences are the actual currency of a fulfilled life.
And to prove that, there is this incredible story in the text about the author's roommate, Jason. Back in his early 20s, Jason decided he wanted to backpack across Europe, but he was completely broke.
As most 20-somethings are.
Exactly. So what does he do? He goes to a literal loan shark and borrows
A
$10,000.
literal loan shark.
Yes. No collateral, sky-high interest, the whole sketchy 9 yards.
Yeah.
Takes that money, flies to Europe, sleeps in dingy youth hostels, eats baguettes in Paris, has a summer romance, and basically has a life-changing adventure. The author, meanwhile, played it safe. He worked, saved his money, and waited until he was 30 to finally go to Europe. But by then, he realized it was too late. He was too old to comfortably sleep on a hostel floor, and he had too many career responsibilities to replicate that exact magic.
It's a completely different trip at 30.
It is, but I have to say, a literal loan shark. My heart rate is going up just hearing that. I am sweating just thinking about owing a guy named Vinny 10 grand at 22 years old so I could eat pastries in Paris.
Yeah, it's intense.
Every financial guru on earth would have a heart attack hearing this story. How can the text possibly justify Jason's decision?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we see that while his method of financing was undeniably risky, Jason's fundamental instinct was mathematically optimal for his life fulfillment.
Okay, how so?
The experiences he gained paid something called a memory dividend. And it was so massive that, looking back, he wouldn't trade those memories for any amount of money.
The memory dividend. I love this concept. It's so brilliant.
Right, because we tend to think of experiences as fleeting. You go on a trip, you come home, you unpack, and it's just over. But the text argues that experiences actually pay compounding interest.
Compounding interest, like a bank account.
Exactly. Every time you recall that trip, every time you share a hilarious story about getting lost in Rome at a dinner party, every time you bond with the friend you traveled with, you are earning a dividend on that initial investment.
It's the exact opposite of a material object. If you buy a luxury car, it depreciates the second you drive it off the lot. But an experience actually gains value over time as it becomes part of your identity.
It becomes who you are.
You can really see this when you contrast Jason's trip with another story in the text about a guy named Paulie. Paulie is 50 years old and wants to buy vacation real estate in Central America.
Right. The real estate guy.
Yeah. But instead of thinking about the incredible memories he could make there with his kids while they are still young, he's agonizing over the spreadsheet. He's stressed because the property only offers a 3% financial return on his equity. He's totally missing the point. He should be looking at the return on experience.
Exactly. The lesson here isn't that you should go find a loan shark. The lesson is that investing in experiences early in your life pays the highest compounding interest you will ever receive.
But of course, the natural counter-argument, the ant mentality, is I can't blow my money in my 20s or 30s. I need to save my money now so I can travel and enjoy my golden years in retirement.
The famous golden years.
Right. But the book completely shatters this myth of the golden years. It reveals a really brutal biological truth. which is that your ability to actually use and enjoy money decays over time.
It comes down to a triad of life fulfillment. To do anything, to have any experience, you need three things: health, free time, and money. When you are young, you have vibrant health and plenty of time, but no money. In middle age, you have health and money, but your career and family leave you with zero free time.
That's so true.
And in your golden years, you finally have abundant time, and you usually have the most money, but you critically lack health.
That decay of utility is so perfectly captured in the story of the Soggy Dollar Bar. Have you heard of this place?
Oh, yeah, in the British Virgin Islands.
Yeah. There's no dock, so you literally have to anchor your boat out in the water and physically swim 30 yards to the beach to buy a drink with wet cash.
Which is such a fun concept when you're young.
Right. So the author took his girlfriend's grandfather, Chris, on a trip there. Chris was 69 years old, and get this, a former swim coach.
A swim coast.
Yes. So Chris jumps in, starts swimming to the bar, and halfway there he completely panics. He's gasping for air, swallowing seawater. He barely makes it to the beach and nearly needs a defibrillator.
Oh my God.
He had the time, he had the money to rent the boat, but the physical utility his body had decayed.
And it's not just extreme physical activities like swimming in the ocean. The text mentions a grandmother who was gifted $10,000 by her grandson.
Oh, I remember this.
Yeah, he wanted her to go on a cruise or remodel her house. Instead, she bought a $50 sweater and kept her couches covered in uncomfortable, sticky plastic to protect them.
Wow.
She had the money, but she simply lacked the go to spend it. Her internal desire and physical capacity for new experiences had entirely faded.
Which forces you to think about what the text calls the would you rather framework. Whenever you are deciding whether to spend or save, you have to ask yourself, would you rather have one trip to Europe right now at age 25 or two trips to Europe in 10 years when the money has compounded?
It's a very great question.
When you factor in the decay of your health, your energy, and the loss of those compounding memory dividends, that one trip right now is mathematically far more valuable.
It really is.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though, because I hear people push back on this all the time. People will say, look, aging is different now. I eat perfectly. I do yoga. I run marathons. I'm in way better shape at 50 than I ever was at 20. Doesn't that break the rule? Doesn't that prove you can delay gratification and still win?
It's a fair point, but the text highlights the underlying biological reality. If you are genuinely fitter at 50 than you were at 20, it doesn't mean aging is a myth.
Right.
It just means you severely neglected your health when you were 20. Biologically speaking, across the entire human population, the utility of money, which is your physical ability to convert a dollar into maximum enjoyment, peaks around your late 20s to early 30s.
The dollar goes furthest then.
Exactly. Having $100,000 at age 30 can buy you a 6-month backpacking trip through the Alps. Having $100,000 at age 85 might only buy you a slightly nicer hospital bed. The money is exactly the same, but its utility has fallen off a cliff.
That is so sobering. So if the math is that clear and it rationally dictates that we should spend our wealth while we have the health to actually enjoy it, why don't we?
Why don't we?
Right. The answer is just raw fear. Human beings are absolutely terrified of outliving their money. The nightmare of ending up 90 years old and completely broke overrides all the logic. But the source provides an analytical solution to this emotional fear.
It brings us back to the 1950s, and an economist named Franco Modigliani, he actually won a Nobel Prize for what he called the life cycle hypothesis.
Okay, what is that?
He stated that the purely rational person aims for their wealth to decline to exactly zero by their date of death. Anything left over is simply inefficient allocation of resources.
Right, but the obvious problem is we don't know our date of death. We suffer from what economists call longevity risk, which is the fear of living too long and running out of cash.
And it's a huge fear.
It is. And for most people, that fear is way stronger than mortality risk, which is the fear of dying early. Because we are so scared of longevity risk, the text makes a brilliant point. It says, you are not a good insurance agent.
No, you're really not.
People drastically oversave to self-insure against the tiny statistical chance they live to be 110 or to cover massive theoretical medical catastrophes. And the result is that massive waste of life energy we saw with Elizabeth.
Exactly. You shouldn't be your own insurance agent. You should let the actual insurance companies handle that risk.
It makes sense.
The practical tools the text suggests are things like life expectancy calculators, like those from the Society of Actuaries, to get a realistic, data-driven baseline of your lifespan. And more importantly, buying annuities.
Well, I always thought annuities were just boring financial products, but thinking about them through this lens completely changes the game. Think of an annuity like buying yourself a synthetic pension.
A synthetic pension, exactly.
Instead of staring at your declining bank balance in retirement and panicking every single time you buy groceries, you hand the risk over to an insurance company. You write them a lump sum check up front, and in return, they promise to direct deposit money into your account every single month until the day you die.
It acts as an emotional safety net.
Yes, it removes the mental burden of, will I run out? So you can comfortably spend whatever wealth you have left.
It allows you to spend freely without the background anxiety.
And speaking of anxiety, the source recommends a psychological tool that sounds really intense at first. It recommends downloading an app called Final Countdown.
Final countdown.
Yeah, you put in your actuarial data, and it visually ticks away the estimated days, hours, and minutes until your death.
Yikes.
My first instinct was that staring at a ticking death clock on my phone would give me a daily panic attack. But then I realized we already live with anxiety because we're on autopilot. We assume we have infinite time, so we put off the trip. We put off the career change.
This raises an important question, though, about how we view our own mortality.
How so?
Well, we hide from our mortality in modern culture. But the text argues that facing the actual timeline doesn't cause anxiety. It cures apathy. Acknowledging that the window is closing is exactly what forces you to live deliberately today. It creates the necessary urgency to actually book the flight.
But even if you use the calculators and the annuities and you conquer your own personal fear of running out of money, there is one final massive hurdle: legacy.
Ah, yes.
The kids. Right. Because the most common pushback to the die with zero philosophy is that it sounds incredibly selfish. People say, what about my kids? What about leaving money to a good cause?
And the source material has a brilliant, blunt response to this. Dead people can't give money away.
They really can.
If you truly care about your kids or a charity, the money you intend for them should be calculated, separated from your money, and given to them while you are alive.
Because the way we handle traditional inheritance is fundamentally flawed. The author calls it the 3 R's. When you wait until you die to pass on your wealth, you are giving random amounts of money at a random time to random people.
Right, because who knows which of your heirs will even be alive or in need when you eventually pass.
Exactly. And the data supports this beautifully. The Federal Reserve shows that the peak age for receiving an inheritance in the United States is 60 years old.
Think about how absurd that is. 60 years old.
By the time they get the money, their knees are already bad. The text tells the story of Virginia Collin. At age 30, she was a single mother raising 4 kids on the very edge of poverty, desperately struggling to put food on the table.
A really tough situation.
Her parents had money, but they held on to it out of fear. When Virginia was 49, the kids were grown, and she was already living a comfortable middle-class life. Her mother passed away and left her $130,000.
Wow. Timing is everything.
It was nice, sure. But 20 years earlier, that money would have been fundamentally life-altering. The text argues that the optimal age to give your kids money is between 26 and 35. So what does this all mean? My initial thought was, if I give my kids a massive chunk of their inheritance at 26, aren't they just going to blow it on a sports car or terrible startup idea? There's a reason society usually tells us to wait until people are older and wiser to pass down wealth.
It's a very valid fear. But that 26 to 35 window is the perfect intersection of maturity and utility.
The sweet spot.
Exactly. By 26, most people are old enough to be trusted not to completely squander it, but they are young enough that the money has maximum utility. Think about what a cash injection does at 28.
It changes everything.
They can use it to put a down payment on a house before real estate prices double again. They can start a family without crushing financial stress. They can pay off student loans. You are drastically altering the trajectory of their entire life rather than just padding their retirement account when they are 60.
And the exact same logic applies to charity. Do charities need your money when you're dead, or do they need it right now? The text contrasts 2 completely different approaches. First, you have Sylvia Bloom.
The legal secretary.
Yeah, she was a legal secretary who lived incredibly frugally, took the subway every day, and quietly hoarded $8.2 million. She didn't give it away until she died at age 96.
Incredible discipline, but poor timing.
On the other hand, you have billionaires like Chuck Feeney or Robert F. Smith who practice giving while living. Charities desperately need capital now to compound its social impact.
Yeah.
If you want to cure a disease, Funding the research today is infinitely more valuable than funding it 40 years from now.
It all comes back to being deliberate with your resources. Your legacy isn't what happens automatically after you die. Your legacy is the active impact you have while you are still here.
Which brings us to the core summary of this entire deep dive. The Die with Zero philosophy isn't about being reckless. It isn't about lighting your money on fire or being irresponsible.
Not at all.
It is about being hyper-deliberate. Your life is nothing more than the sum of your experiences. Hoarding money until you are physically incapable of enjoying it or passing it to your children when they are too old to really need it is a tragedy. It is unspent life energy.
There's a beautiful, albeit somewhat melancholic, concept in the text that ties this all together. The author calls it time bucketing.
I'm kidding.
Yeah. He tells a story about watching the Heffalump movie with his young daughter over and over again. And then one day, she was 10, and she just didn't want to watch it anymore. She had outgrown it.
Oh, wow.
He realized that we don't just die once at the very end of our lives. We die a multitude of micro-deaths throughout our entire lives.
Micro-deaths.
There will be a last time you pick up your child. There will be a last time you are physically able to play a specific sport. A last time you can comfortably handle a long-haul flight to travel the world. Those versions of you die, and those windows close forever.
That is such a powerful image. We spend so much time acting like the ant, endlessly storing up seeds in the dirt for a winter that we might not even be healthy enough to enjoy. And while we are looking down at the dirt, we let all those micro-deaths happen without even noticing. We let the summer slip away.
Exactly. The goal isn't just to survive the winter. The goal is to thrive in the seasons you have.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive, we want to leave you with a final, provocative thought to mull over. Take a hard, honest look at your exact age right now, your current physical health, and your bank account today.
Right now.
What is one specific experience you have been continually putting off for the future that you are actually in the final closing window of being able to do right now before that specific version of you dies forever?
It's a question worth answering today, not tomorrow.
Because the clock is ticking. You can't take it with you, so you might as well get the highest return on your life while you still can.